became my so-called life. Gritty streets and golden skies, red eyes, hard pillows, and hard luck stories enough to fill 13 shots on a sticky, rat-trodden...
9 dead.
Megan, my name is Jordan Cameron, and I'm the games editor and editor-in-chief for BlackManandRobin.com. Now, I hear you're working on a very interesting game called Hot Tin Roof. Can you tell our listeners about it?
Sure. It's kind of like if you mixed Metroid, Ultima 7, and Zelda, or if you took L.A. Noire and, L.A. Noire mixed with Metroid and you added an Inspector Gadget gun, you're kind of on the same page.
Yeah,
it's, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just saying that sounds really neat. Go on.
Yeah, it's a noir game, obviously, a noir side-scroller. You play detective, you've got a sidekick that's a little cat, and you're solving cases, usually grisly murders, which is odd given that the visual style is kind of this boxy, cutesy sort of thing. It's kind of unique. But you mix that with the noir themes of a grisly murder with someone bleeding out on the floor, and it's this weird mix. Weird sense of humor plus grisly reality.
Well, it sounds really quite trippy, so what made you want to make a game like this?
Well, it's kind of weird. I started making a revolver system. If you ever played the game called Receiver, it's a first-person shooter that does this really cool, fully physical gun thing. And I kind of wanted to do that, but with a revolver. So I started making that, and I got a revolver, and it was really cool. And once I had that going, it was becoming clear that, well, I guess this is a detective game because, well, it's a revolver, and it's neat, and it's dark. So I put a fedora and an overcoat in. And then I got that far, and then my previous game was called Jones on Fire, which featured these goofy cats for no reason other than I was a terrible artist at the time, and that's all I had time to make. But people liked it, so it's like, okay, let's throw a cat in, and once the cat was in there, it became clear this was an Emma Jones game, linked to the previous one, and the cat had to be a partner, because you can't just have random cats for no reason. And it kind of evolved from there.
Okay, but that sounds really quite... That might be the most interesting, most slightly out there origin story for a game I've ever heard. Now, okay, so I know why you've been driven to make it, but okay, so now I hear you guys are on Kickstarter. You just met your $20,000 goal. Wait, was it 20,000?
20,000. That's correct.
20,000. Yeah, you guys have surpassed that. Congratulations. So let's say
Thank you
guys jump past that a bit. What are you guys going to aim at?
So we've got a bunch of stretch goals. The next one's at $30,000. It's for something called Chinatown. Chinatown would be, noir movies always have the Chinatown motif. It's really cool. There's a lot of cool characters, a lot of neat color usage. We would obviously avoid the racial stereotypes that tend to go along with classic noir cinema, Jerry Lewis, Buckteeth. We're not going there. But in our version of Chinatown, there is a Siamese cat called the Siamese who's trying to take over the nip trade with his own creation, poppy seed muffins. And from there, you end up finding a new kind of ammo for your gun, which is firework ammunition. It acts as an ignition source, as well as a light source, as well as a noise source, etc. It would add a lot of neat angles to puzzles and things we could do.
Okay, that sounds like a neat expansion. I mean, I'm usually all for, I've seen a lot of kind of lame stretch goals that usually just add an extra costume or something. This actually sounds awesome. Very nice.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it should be fun.
So
if we can get there, obviously it'll be fun.
Yeah. Now I've noticed that your main protagonist is female, even though in a lot of film noir type stuff, the main detective is usually a guy. Now, is this on purpose, or did it just so happen to turn out that way?
It was on purpose. I'm an indie, so obviously we being indies like to do things that maybe big studios can't do, and I'm really tired of the generic bald white male protagonist who is straight, etc., and has there is that generic hero type that's in almost every single game that comes out. And if there's a woman, odds are good they're either a damsel in distress or a guy has to help them. Even in Tomb Raider, which was a great remake, and I really liked it, they made Laura cry for the first half of the game, I guess because you can't have a female character without her crying. I don't know. But all of that is why I started with basically an inversion of that. So if the standard hero is white, male, straight, bald, let's have a black woman with a full head of hair who's a lesbian, who's a kick-ass hero. Just kind of opposite everything and start there. Yeah. Well, the funny thing is you never actually see the hair because Bakshans never wander around without hats. And the reason for that is they look kind of goofy with just a flat top head, so assume there's a full, beautiful head of hair underneath the hat.
So, now I'm kind of wondering, how did you get started as a developer?
Well, that goes way back. Whenever I was 11, I taught myself C from this horrible old book called C for Rookies. I don't recommend it.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure I started that because I was a gamer when I was an itty bitty kid on like an Apple IIe, and my mom probably said, "Oh, here, you program, and that's how you make games," and that's how I got into it. From there, I did modding. Then I started working with C, C++ and making actual games when I was 14. I got into AAA soon after. Actually, I got into AAA development while I was still in college, technically. I was in the last 2 years of my degree in mathematics, but I managed to snag a position with a startup called Eidolon LLC. And we were making this cool MMO prototype thing. It didn't actually get off the ground because it was a bad time for it, but it was a really cool game. I went from there to a company called NetDevil, working in a game called Lego Universe, where I was the senior graphics programmer. And it did really well, but not well enough for Lego. We were actually profitable by the end, but not profitable enough was the idea. So they shut us down. And from there I went indie, and then I made Jones on Fire, and now I'm making Hot Tin Roof.
Now I think I might have a vague memory of Lego Universe. Now, was that a game? I'm trying to remember. Were there like little Lego crab things or something like that, or is that a different game I'm thinking of?
There might have been. So Lego Universe was a massively multiplayer game where you started out, you customized your minifigure. You started out on a spaceship that was crashing out of the sky. You jumped around and it's a platforming. You took a rocket ship off it, and then you were on, I forget the name of the zone. But it was kind of a grassy green zone, and there were darklings around, and you fought with them and smashed them. And it's kind of the MMO version of the Traveler's Tales games that everyone knows at this point.
Oh, that sounds like it was a really neat project. Pity about what happened to it. No, I'm thinking of a much older Lego game then. Well before the Traveler's Tales ones.
There was like a Paradise game. Yeah, there was a bunch of them.
Yeah, very nice. Now, so I see your Kickstarter is succeeding beautifully. Do you have any advice for indies who are thinking about starting a Kickstarter campaign?
Mostly it's wait as long as possible. So ours is doing great. We funded. I think if we could have waited, so we're like 6 months out from release. We've still got a long ways to go. The game's still pretty rough. If we'd been able to wait longer and wait till like 3 months out from release so we had more to show, especially if we'd waited until we had truly polished visuals where the graphics were basically done, we could have probably raised a lot more. Instead of just hitting the goal, we'd be looking at, a lot higher. So there's this weird thing with Kickstarter where the idea is that it's there to kickstart a project. But realistically speaking, you want to wait as long as possible so that you've got more to show, so that you can make a better showing, so that you can generate more excitement. So wait as long as you can, and once you've waited as long as you can, then push what you've got. Make sure you focus on visual polish and audio polish, since those are things that show in the video the best. Demos are often a bad idea, as weird as that might sound. Players like demos, but practically speaking, demos usually act to be a way to cancel a purchase, like play a demo and say, "Oh, I don't like this." Comparatively speaking, most people don't sit down and play a demo and then get convinced to do the purchase. It's this weird thing. Sometimes it doesn't actually work that way. It depends how polished your demo is. The problem with a Kickstarter, though, is odds are good whatever you're calling a demo is actually going to be a prototype, and end users aren't going to jive with a prototype. You would have to release a truly polished demo for it to have a really positive effect. And if you're an indie doing a Kickstarter, you probably don't have that truly polished demo. So you want to focus more on your visual presentation and your audio presentation and the video. It's also a good idea to have the prototype, but instead of releasing it to the average user, release it to YouTubers and to press. Since both of those are people that are more used to playing with rough demos and they'll work around it, and then the average user will find the video of the Let's Play and really enjoy it and think it's cool, and if they see the rough points, they can just fast forward past them instead of it being this horrible thing that just stopped their fun and they're not going to pledge anymore.
That's definitely, I think that's a very good point to keep in mind for indies. I have seen quite a few terrible demos in my day, so.
Yeah.
But, now, how big a role would you say that social media is starting to have to play in games?
Um, well, I mean, for my Kickstarter release, it's substantial. Nearly 10% of my pledges came from Twitter directly, and I would go so far as to say that if I didn't have the Twitter following that I do, I was like at 1.3 thousand before this, I think. If I didn't have that following, I probably wouldn't have had the success I did. That's how I got like 10% of my direct pledges, and there's probably a bunch more people that heard about it thanks to Twitter and then searched and did that thing. So at least for indies, social media is hugely important, and that's your primary advertisement avenue. We can't afford to buy big fancy screen covering things on press websites, and we often can't create the big media spectacles that the big sites like to see to give consistent coverage. Like in our case, we got really good coverage for the first couple days because I'd spent about a month talking to press before the Kickstarter started, but after that we obviously didn't get as much coverage because they'd done the story on the game, and that was like the story, and we didn't have Ron Gilbert is going to do the voice or whatever. We didn't have any big announcements like that were big enough to really break into big press after that first. So we're driving our game entirely on social media and entirely on grassroots. And that's pretty much what you're going to have even without the Kickstarter. That's just what you're going to be your entire life. You're never going to have a consistent number of giant press stories for Rock, Paper, Shotgun to really do a feature on. You're probably going to have, a couple Rock, Paper, Shotgun shots that you maybe have a shot at. But you need to be filling the rest of that time with massive, just talking about your game to everyone that will listen and doing your best to get the idea across that it's a cool game and that you should play it. And, just always talking your head off, basically. So, social media.
Exactly. I mean, and I understand that can be kind of difficult for an indie dev because, large companies, they have literal teams that do their social media for them, whereas an indie dev, it could just be you, your computer, and your basement,
Yeah, and it's even harder than that because usually, at least at the large studios, it's not just that you have a large PR team. It's that team's full of naturally outgoing, confident people that are used to talking about their game and talking about whatever game they're working on, and that's part of their job, and that's what they've built their career towards. You take indies. 3 years ago, whenever I got laid off and I became an indie, I was kind of shy. And even before, and thankfully, I had started to come out of my shell. A couple of years before that, I was a massive nerd, geeky shut-in. I'm still a massive nerd, geeky person, just less of a shut-in now. But, not only do they have to overcome the just being the marketing person thing that they probably never had to do, but they probably got a lot of social issues. They probably were previously a shy artist, a shy programmer. Most of us aren't naturally outgoing, and you have to overcome that and be willing to accept that yes, people out there would love to hear about your game if you'll only tell them about it. Instead of, I don't want to offend anyone, and I don't want to interrupt them, whatever they're doing. I can't talk about my game. Just hiding in a corner, and that doesn't work.
Now, do you feel that with the expanded role of social media and, Kickstarters and such, do you feel that's like where the industry is going to keep heading? Do you feel that's going to become more of an expanded thing for developers, or do you think that it's going to sort of balance out at some point?
Well, okay, here's a for instance. What I'm personally laying a bet on is that Steam is eventually going to separate the concept of being on Steam, so like on their servers and being able to sell through Steam, versus being on their front page, their Steam store. The reason they're going to do this is because Greenlight is way too slow a process, and they don't want to create this artificial gateway for just being able to sell your game. On the other hand, they still need some system to curate the content that actually gets to their front page, so they're probably going to have a Greenlight-like system that filters that. But the point is, once they've done this, what they're probably going to do is open up the store page and say, look, if you want to make your own store page, go for it. So you're probably going to see an IndieGames.com page, an Indie Game Mag page, a Rock, Paper, Shotgun page, a Cynical Brit page, a Jesse Cox page. All of these different storefronts that are for pushing games that these media moguls or large sites think are cool enough to push. So instead of just being... So on PC right now, it's like Target Steam. And before it was just Target Steam done. Now it's Target Greenlight, Target Steam done. And nothing else matters anywhere near as much, except for maybe good old games. What it's going to be then is you have Steam, which is a really tough nut to crack, and then probably 20 other storefronts that you've also got to push for. And not just that, there's probably going to be an indie storefront on PS3 or PS4. There's already one on Wii U. There's one on there's not one on the Xbox One yet, but I'm assuming they're going to put something up. There's all of the Android stores. There's all
iOS.
basically iOS. And right now, so iOS and Android are still Google Play and App Store driven, but the curation systems are going to have to open up somehow. And what it's going to do is create all of these different curation targets that you have to hit. Instead of just being the storefront, it'll be the storefront and the 20 people who are the tastemakers. And so social media is going to become even more important since you're going to have to target all of these new people and all of these new marketplaces. There won't just be that easy one default that you can submit things to and be done. And I don't know when it's going to balance out, but things are going to get more open, which is going to make that more important.
Yes, I definitely do agree that a bit more openness is necessary to the industry continuing to grow. Now, you mentioned, though, about personalities having their own storefronts, and you reminded me of GamesOrGlorio.us. Have you been to that one? It's by David Gallant.
No, what is it?
David S. Gallant, he's the guy who made I Get This Call Every Day. He pretty much created a storefront called GamesOrGlorio.us. And in short, it's like a listing of some of his favorite indie games, along with like their little Humble Bundle widgets, or whatever they're using to sell. And I mean, I do think it would be very interesting to see if like more YouTubers, for instance, created their own storefronts. Hey, I played the game, you can get it here.
Yeah, and well, so I just went to the website. Yeah, this is basically what you're going to see. The only reason this isn't taking off right now is because, so all of these are basically Humble Bundle widgets. Humble Bundle is, Humble Store is probably the most popular direct sales method, but there's still, I don't know, probably 90% of the market, it's huge, refuses to buy PC games unless they're on Steam. So if this were the same thing, Games Are Glorious, or Games Are Glorio US, yeah, if it was this basically the same thing, but instead of being Humble Bundle widgets, it was Valve Store widgets or whatever they're going to have to do, Valve Storefront. This is exactly what you're going to see happen, and you're going to see this happen on every major press website there is, and some of them are going to be more important than others. And it's going to be kind of a nightmare for a while.
It's very interesting. It does make me kind of curious as to what possibilities for monetization there are. Like, do you think that, for example, some YouTuber creates his own site, like Games Are Glorious? Do you think he's going to be scraping a little off the top?
Absolutely. If you remember, there was a rumor that ran around for a while that Valve was talking about a royalties system, or an affiliate marketing system, and no one knew what they were talking about. What they're probably talking about is the system they're going to use to allow these storefronts run by individuals to scrape sales based on referring people in towards these games. They're probably going to get the way it works on iOS, for instance, is whenever you have an affiliate link, that affiliate link takes a cut of Apple's cut. So it's not like it adds an extra percentage, it's just that Apple gets slightly less, and some of that goes to the affiliate link, which is a really cute way of working around their cut. You can actually drive sales of your game via your own affiliate link towards your game, and then you effectively get more of a cut than you would if you were just relying on direct sales. But anyways, you're going to see that kind of thing here, and it's going to be another revenue source for all of the major sites, and probably all of the major YouTubers more so, since YouTubers are kind of taking over the media, the media of tomorrow. They are bigger, way bigger drivers than almost all of the press websites out there.
I definitely agree with you on that one. It's funny, I created a video on YouTube. It wasn't really a big thing a while ago, and it was top 10 Oculus Rift games. And cool. Guess what? That video itself pulls in more hits than the article that I wrote.
Yeah.
Funny thing. But I mean, that's very interesting that you brought that out, though, because YouTube, you don't make very much money off the ads. But this would create new opportunities for people who do Let's Plays and such of games, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, look at Jesse Cox, or Northern Lion, or Red Panda Gamer, or obviously Cynical Brit. These guys are able to draw in. So, simple example. In my Greenlight listing, that you get metrics in Greenlight. The only noticeable hit I've ever seen is Rock Paper Shotgun. Rock Paper Shotgun drives massive eyeballs, But that aside, every single other hit that I can distinguish from noise came from a YouTuber. That's also true for Kickstarter pledges. All of the major surges that I've seen thus far, aside from the Rock Paper Shotgun surge, almost all of them came from a YouTube video. The press is good for informing the audience and for increasing general awareness, but it seems like YouTubers are able to really just smash eyeballs into games in a way that almost nothing else can, and it's kind of shocking. So if you were getting a cut for every single one of those eyeballs you smashed in, I have to assume it would be significant. I don't know how much it'll be, but I assume it would make YouTubing a more viable industry, a more viable job, which will just make that even a bigger part of our media than it already is.
A somewhat more profitable hobby with benefits, in short.
Yeah, definitely something where... So I guess if I was like a high schooler today, I would probably be looking at making some combination of an indie studio and releasing free-to-play games that are just goofy and fun, and then doing YouTubes. Because I swear, some of these guys can probably make a ton more than I ever made as a student with any of my side jobs.
What were your side jobs? Now I'm curious.
Well, back then I had this terrible, and it was terrible, IT company. We had one company that was an older couple, and we totally failed to help them and told them to go to Best Buy. It was a terrible first job. There was that, and then eventually I did a pizza delivery. Thankfully, when I was in college the first time, I lucked out and got a really good internship at a company that was doing programming, and then I dropped out of school to go with them, and then .com hit, so I lost my job, and then I had to go back to school, and then I did pizza delivery.
Oh, I'm glad you graduated. Kids, stay in school. But yeah, I'm really glad to hear you graduated.
Well, I don't know. My degree's in mathematics, and I'm not sure it's ever directly helped me. Especially in games, your portfolio is what matters more than anything. The degree is more like a checkbox that helps you get past HR, or that if you've got two equal candidates, the one with the degree might win. But realistically speaking, the portfolio matters more. So on the one hand, I don't know if the degree really helps, but on the other, I grew a lot as a student, and I learned a ton of cool stuff, and I value that experience. So I don't know. But yeah, I'm glad I graduated finally.
Yeah, I think a lot of, part of having a degree, I suppose, is like showing off, yes, I have the discipline to do the work, you know?
Yes, and especially with a math degree, because absolutely no one knows what my math degree means, and I barely know what it means. I mean, math is a huge field. It's not like I am an expert of math. You can't. I am a really good applied numerical mathematician, but like set theory totally mystifies me, chaos theory totally mystifies me.
Well, it all begins with butterfly, though.
Exactly. But the point is, because math is such a big field, having a math degree is effectively a smart card. You say, oh, I've got a degree in math. Everyone goes, oh, it's a degree in math. That must mean you're smart. No, not really. It's just a degree in math. But thank you for thinking that.
It's very interesting to consider. Now, I'm obligated to ask everybody this very personal question.
Okay.
What's your favorite game of all time?
Ultima 7.
Wow,
no question.
That's like you broke a record there.
Really?
Yes. I don't think I've ever been able to ask anybody that and have such a swift response. Now, I gotta know what you love about it, though.
So, whenever I was playing Ultima 7, I was an impressionable, 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 10-year-old, somewhere in there. Point is, that really impressionable age where games, you latch onto them. And what Ultima 7 was a dynamic, living, breathing world. Richard Garriott is still one of the only developers that ever has created a truly interactive environment where NPCs move around through their lives based on... It's a rudimentary AI, but it still gives this sense of liveliness that you don't get anywhere else. They go to sleep at night, they get up, they eat breakfast, they go to the pub for their afternoon lunch, they go to work, they go home, they talk to their kids, they play with their kids. A bunch of these weird little niche interactions. And if you play with the hack mover, you find out that these are not hard scripted. Well, not hard scripted in the way you'd think. For instance, simple example. The chairs around Lord British's table, who is Richard Garriott's alter ego, in the game, if you use the hack mover to move those chairs into the inn, suddenly the Lord British, the king, starts eating lunch with the commoners, which is hilarious. But it shows how how dynamic all of it is, and how if you take out, for instance, there's this sequence that most advanced players do where you can rob the bank. And the way you rob the bank is that the money changer lady has a key on her person. If you get the key, you can open the vault, and if you go in at night, and if you exploit a bug, no one will notice that you're taking the gold, and you can get away scot-free. The problem is, if you kill the money changer lady, you've got a lot of gold you can't ever spend, because she's literally the only person in the game that can turn it into spendable coinage.
Sure.
So you've got to find a clever way of exploiting the mechanics to take the key away from her without pissing her off and without killing her. And there's a bunch of ways of doing it. The sleep spell is popular. You can use a couple of things that will stun her. Then you take the key. Then when she wakes up, she's pissed off. But then you can use a peace spell that calms. Okay, sorry, I'm going into too much detail. But the point is, it's this living, breathing world that I really attach to, and that's what actually made me want to make games in the first place. And that's what I'd wanted. So whenever I was 6, I bet my grandpa I'd make games for a living. I totally won that bet. But it wasn't until I played Ultima 7 that I really had a sense for what games could be. They weren't just arcade games. They weren't just experiences. They were worlds that you could jack into. And that's what Ultima 7 is for me, I guess.
Wow. I heard that the Ultima series was extremely detailed. I had no idea that they went in that far, though.
It did. It starts... So Ultima 6 is where that starts. Ultima 7 was where it peaked. Ultima 7 Serpent's Isle is arguably the best, though it's less open, so some people like it less. Then Ultima 8 and Ultima 9 just kind of go off the deep end, so that one little slice of the series is probably the best. Though Ultima 4 gets a seriously good mention for implementing the virtue system, which was probably one of the first games that rewarded you for not being a jackass.
Yeah, yes. I remember reading. I used to do a lot of reading about the history of games, and I remember hearing about that. So
Yeah.
now I have to know, because Ultima impacted you so deeply, how is it going to affect Hot Tin Roof?
That's the stretch goal at $40,000. So the one past Chinatown is NPC schedules, day-night cycle, living, breathing world. What that means is that instead of me hard scripting, okay, so sorry, throat.
No problem.
Water would help. So, if you look at a game called
The NPCs need drinks.
yes, the NPCs need drinks. There will be lots of drinking. So, Zelda Majora's Mask, Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, they had a faked living, breathing world, and the way they did this was by hard scripting NPCs to spawn at certain points at certain times of the day. It gives you the sense that they're moving through schedules, but you never actually see it happen. It's like you turn around, you turn back around, and the shop's closed, and everyone's gone home. It gets that sense, but it's kind of artificial. Ultima 7 style, you actually see them walking between those states, and there's a lot more interactivity that you can do because of it. And it's also cheaper to implement if you don't have to hard script every single case. It's a lot easier if you can just say, be here at 5 p.m. and the NPCs figure it out. That's the difference that stretch goal would add. It would take it from being kind of a couple of hard scripted edge cases where things shut down at night or things happen at night or whatever, versus actually having a sense that these NPCs are alive and doing this dynamically. And that's the making it more like Ultima 7, which I'd still really like to work into the game somehow, but with our base funding goal, it's unlikely. It's the kind of thing where...
That takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, if we have a lot of pre-orders, or if we have a lot of, or maybe the Kickstarter explodes at the end, it makes it more likely. Otherwise, that's the kind of thing I might have to add as a limited edition feature, or a re-release feature, or maybe when we port it to consoles, we can add it, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, Hot Tin Roof HD features living, breathing.
Exactly, Hot Tin Roof HD.
Yeah. Now, it's very interesting the proliferation of platforms that seems to have occurred.
Yep.
Do you think that it's best to just focus on PC, or that it's really imperative to have Mac and Linux support as well?
As an indie, if you're focusing just on PC, you're making a huge mistake. You've got to focus on everything that you can. So you can theoretically make a very solid living using just Steam, just PC. In the process, you will miss out on any chance at the Humble Bundle. You will miss out on a bunch of other bundles that are similarly multi-platform. And you will miss out on, let's see, Mac, I believe, accounts for 20% of the market. Linux support accounts for 10% according to Humble Bundle figures. So you're missing a ton of potential revenue. Never even mind the potential income you would get from having a mobile port or being on a console, or being on one of the quasi-console mobile things that they're kind of hard to tell. I mean, Ouya, GameStick, I don't know if you'd call that mobile or PC
Whatever
at this point.
Steam machine is going to be.
Yeah, whatever Steam machine's going to be. I am personally hugely behind the Steam box. I can't wait to support it, because realistically all the Steam box is going to be is Linux. But still, that goes back to the whole, the more platforms you support, the more options you've got. So even though you could make a living on just Steam, you're assuming that you're going to break through Greenlight. And if you don't break through Greenlight, which a lot of indies have trouble with because they can't create that surge of interest, you're screwed. That's like you bet everything on that one option, and now you're screwed. On the other hand, if you've got a lot of irons in the fire and you're targeting a lot of different platforms, you've got a lot of different ways to pivot. And it's indiedom, success in indie is less about putting everything on one bet and it succeeding and everyone having cheese and crackers and pie. It's more about making a ton of bets. And almost all of them are going to fizzle. But you've got to be able to pivot and capitalize on whatever your audience, on whatever your platforms, on whatever ends up being popular. You've got to be able to capitalize on it and move instantly and suddenly make that your new focus. And you've got to do that, but without losing focus. So you've got to make a really cool core game and then figure out how to get it everywhere and then be ready to react if it pops up as super popular on Linux, or if it pops up as super popular on Steam, or on consoles, or on Ouya. I'm not a huge Ouya fan, but if your game is like Towerfall is a great example. If your game happens to explode on Ouya, you as an indie need to be there and supporting it with everything you've got. You can't just go, oh, well, I don't like Ouya, so I'm not going to support it. I don't like Ouya, but I'm still going to support it. Yeah,
exactly.
That's the gist.
So in short, you have to have your ear to the ground as to what's happening with your game, where most of the support seems to be coming from, and know your audience, in short.
Exactly. If you're a AAA developer, you can afford to go into a bubble and just be a programmer. If you're an indie, that means you're a marketer too. That means I spend probably an hour a day just reading. I use a site called iGoogle. Well, it used to be iGoogle. Now it's, give me a sec. Maybe someone will actually care about this. It is, ighome.com, which is like a replacement for iGoogle. Basically, I use that to aggregate the Indie Game Magazine, Touch Arcade, IndieGames.com, Gamasutra News, and then I've got a bunch of world news in there too. It makes a nice grid so I can look at the picture really quickly and figure out what's trending. But the point is, I spend an hour a day just trying to keep my pulse on the market and the industry and what indies are doing, what gamers are liking, and you've got to listen to this stuff. You can't just, like I'm on Twitter all the time. You can't just go into a bubble and make a game and pop out 6 months later and hope someone likes it. You've got to be ready to move.
Yes. Now also, something I meant to ask you with regards to Steam. Do you feel that Steam has too much power if an indie game is going to have tremendous trouble succeeding if it's not on it?
On the one hand, it would be nice to see a PC market that wasn't driven by a single all-powerful entity. On the other, if I have to pick a single all-powerful entity, Valve is a pretty okay one to pick. Because you look at mobile, iOS, literally the only driver of sales on iOS is your placement on the sales chart. That is quite seriously the only thing that matters. Getting on Touch Arcade is huge, and it's awesome for me because I like critical successes. But all it does, practically speaking, for money is make it more likely that you'll get featured by Apple, and then you'll make the money, which is horrible. That like Touch Arcade is a great site. They should be able to, drive financial successes, but they can't because Apple has the market totally locked down. Google Play is pretty much the same way. Google Play featuring is all that matters. Amazon featuring is all that matters. So, by comparison, PC, yes, it's dominated by Valve, and yes, you need to be on Steam to succeed, but there's a pretty good roadmap for how to get onto Steam. I mean, getting through Greenlight's a matter of inertia. It's a matter of time and effort. It's not like some game. It's not like there are games that can't break through Steam, but those games probably wouldn't break through in any other market. They're going to be niche titles that have difficulty finding an audience. If you're one of the games that's likely to establish a larger audience to begin with, you can eventually break through Greenlight. And that's not even saying big games. Sorry, I was just on the site, Games Are Glorious. Race the Sun is a fantastic little micro experience. That's going to break through Greenlight. That's going to kick tons of ass. It's going to do fine. Gone Home is a niche title. I'm just going to run down the list now. That I love, and I still haven't played it, so please no spoilers. I want to play it. I'm gonna play it this weekend. I just found out it has gamepad support, which means I can play it on my couch, so I'm super excited. Or Drifter, or Papers, Please. Basically, there's a ton of niche titles here, Actual Sunlight, Blocks That Matter. Oh, I love Blocks That Matter.
I feel so horribly guilty over not beating that one yet.
Blocks That Matter?
Yeah.
Oh, man. So I've never beaten it. I don't feel guilty at all because the last 10 to 20 puzzles are total bastard puzzles, and if the developer is listening to this, you're a meanie for making them so hard, but I love your game. But, yeah. I've never beaten it, and I'm totally okay with that. But it's totally awesome. But anyways, all of these games are examples of, well, some of them, are examples of smaller games that would still find an audience. There are other games that are smaller games that would not find an audience that are not going to break through Greenlight. But the point is, Greenlight is something that you can generally target for and generally break through if you focus on that from the beginning. Once you've done that, tastemakers can suddenly make your game a success. Being on Steam is a huge point of that, but having a Rock Paper Shotgun article can seriously drive sales. Having a video from the Cynical Brit, having a video from Northern Lion, Red Panda Gamer, Jesse Cox, etc., etc., etc. These can suddenly have huge impacts. So, yes, there's this bottleneck to getting into the PC market that happens to be Steam, but once you're through that bottleneck, it opens back up again. That is at least better than if it was just a bottleneck that bottlenecked the entire market and you're done. It'd be nice to see it open, and I think it will once they separate the store back end from the marketplace front end, and that's going to make it probably as open as the PC market's ever going to be, since at that point, Valve driving the market is no worse than if Microsoft was driving the market with their store, or whatever else. There's going to be someone that eventually owns that platform that's everyone wants their game on. Yeah. Because no one wants to deal with 13 different fragmented groups that are all pointing out games, and most gamers these days don't want to deal with games that don't live in their main focal store.
Exactly.
So someone's eventually going to dominate it. If someone has to dominate it, I'd at least rather it be Valve than Microsoft.
Yeah, that is one thing that I do rather like about Valve. Beyond the ease of use of getting your game, I mean, sure, you might wind up in Greenlight Limbo for a while, but beyond the ease of use, just being on the front page of Steam for the couple days that you will be is a tremendous driver for attention to your game, you know?
Yeah. And then you've got all of the possibilities for flash sales, weekly sales, bundles.
Free weekends.
Though I will say it's not like the Steam store is the only driver. There have been successes that were driven by the Humble Bundle.
Yeah.
So as closed as the PC market is by Valve, it's not truly closed. There are still avenues for opportunity if people can do it. Like Indie Royale, it doesn't hold a candle to Steam, to a Humble Bundle as far as I'm aware. But I have heard some pretty surprising numbers from it. Not like make my game a success numbers, but really nice bonus after you've had an okay release, or maybe takes it from a not so great release to okay, I'm okay with this release. So there are other avenues. The big one is just that until Steam opens it up so that everyone can be on Steam and that everyone's game can be added to someone's Steam collection so that everyone's not dealing with 13 fragmented stores. Once they hit that point, I feel like the fact that there will still be a barrier to getting on the storefront, everyone will be happier with that, because suddenly it'll be possible to put your game on Steam and then, okay, I'm not on the storefront, but I'm going to work around that and go to these 13 other places that are very cool, and they don't drive as much as Steam, but they still drive enough. And then you're not losing all of those sales because you don't have a little icon that says you're on Steam, which is really silly right now. But that's a reality. Either you're on Steam or 90% of people won't give a shit.
And I do seem to remember looking at my Humble, when they introduced the accounts, looking at all the games that I had on Humble, and I was like, wait a minute, this seems to mirror Steam in some ways, because having everything available in one convenient place, I have 100 games in the Humble store. So.
Oh yeah, and so over time that will. This is why I like the PC market. You can actually have competition. Humble Store has positioned themselves to totally kick the shit out of Valve if Valve doesn't do something in the next couple of years. Humble Store is still, I don't know if they're still technically in beta, but the links and emails that you use to get a Humble Store widget are still this kind of weird secret that passes amongst indies, and we tell the next guy, here you go, here's the link, and it passes on. So it's still this kind of underground thing. But if Valve doesn't do something, they're going to establish themselves as the Valve alternative. And then Valve opening the store won't matter because everyone will be more interested in having their game on Humble than on Valve. So, yeah, they're positioned to at least matter more than, any other outlet I can think of. Again, aside from Good Old Games. Good Old Games has a long-standing customer base. A ton of people trust them. The no DRM thing is huge for their customer base. So I don't think Valve can ever really kill Good Old Games. What could happen, though, is that Humble Store could displace Good Old Games. I'm not sure what's going to happen there.
Yeah, it's very interesting because, Good Old Games established, I used to be a more prominent member of the Open Pandora community. They're very focused on, open source technology and stuff, and when Good Old Games happened, everybody was tremendously excited about it over Steam because, hey, it's all our games, DRM-free, very easy to access. But at the same time, everybody also seems to be very interested in the Humble Store. So I do suppose that there seems to be something of a niche audience of people who are focused on being released from DRM. So
first of all, I'm still not sure if Humble Store counts as DRM because some people might think of it as, since it's connected to the list, what if the list goes away? I don't know what people's feelings are there. Oh, sorry, excuse me. What all Humble Bundle is doing right now is basically displacing all of those terrible direct sale providers with a single direct sale provider that makes it way more convenient, offers way more payment types, and everyone trusts and likes. So instead of having a skeezy, before Humble Bundle, I used a company called Sellbox. They're actually really cool. They're very good to work with, but people would look at that and go, what the hell is a sale box? Well, what is a sell box? This is weird. I don't want to give you my money. So Humble is becoming the trusted brand of direct sales. I don't know if their brand is actually DRM free at this point. They're not pushing as hard on that angle. So Good Old Games still has that marketing edge of the home for DRM free. But looking at every single one of these widgets says all DRM free, all DRM free. Pre-order Drifter for 30% off, and et cetera, DRM free. Everyone's pushing that angle on their Humble, so Good Old Games could be in trouble. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, although, when it comes to DRM and Good Old Games versus Humble, though, I do think that we're pretty much on the same, they're on the same plane, though, because if Good Old Games goes down, well, then any games you didn't download, those are gone. Humble goes down, same issue, so.
That's true. So, yeah, I guess the only thing that Humble doesn't have right now is a storefront. But, they wouldn't be doing this if they weren't planning on pushing in that direction eventually. You can bet your booty that there will be a humblestore.com eventually that has all of this stuff. And I don't know what Good Old Games is going to do at that point, since, personally, I would go Humble Bundle at this point, or Humble Store, just because it's got the indie support already. I like it. I like having the list. It's the system I bought into, and I have to assume that there's more people like me.
Yeah, I do know. I think that it was the Indie Royale people, not Indie Gala people. I think they've started their own storefront, although I'm not sure how well it's doing.
Excuse me. Well, so did Indievania. There's a bunch of indie storefronts out there that have never captured any real attention because no one cares. If it's not on Steam, people wait for it to be on Steam. And while they're waiting for it to be on Steam, they look for a Humble Store widget, and if there's not a Humble Store widget, maybe they'll buy it direct, and that's about it. No one really wants... It's like Steam, or it's like Humble Store, only not. They just want one of the big ones they trust.
Yeah. Yeah, I do wonder what makes us want to, have... I guess it's partially the convenience factor, but also there's something kind of satisfying about, just staring at your library at the end of the day,
Yeah, but whenever you browse through your Steam list, or the Humble Store list is getting long too, it's like, oh, I've got all of these potential games. I never need another game again. And then you never play any of them. You keep buying new games, but there's that feeling of value and whatever.
So now I've come to my next obligatory question. what would you say is the hardest part of game development?
Could I take a break and get some more water?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. What was your question?
Hello again. Yes. So the next obligatory question: what would you say is the most difficult part of game development?
Oh, are you thinking indie game development, where you are everything, or are you thinking in terms
I'm
of
just
this?
thinking in general. Yeah.
Okay. Probably design. It's the one element that... Oh, sorry. Water. Design is the one element that everyone... When I talk like this, can you hear me? I'm talking away from the mic.
Oh yes.
Oh,
I can hear you clearly.
perfect. This mic is awesome. I love condenser mics. Okay. Anyways, the one element that everyone thinks they can do is design, and that's the one element that almost no one can do well. I mean, I am an okay designer, but even in my case, I'm not that great a designer. Where design, I would generally include writing as part of that, which will probably piss off any writers that are listening. Forgive me, I'm not saying that writing is...
I'm a writer.
Yeah. I'm not saying that writing is some secondary thing to design. I'm just saying that I tend to break the industry down into three components. Well, the production industry into three components. You've got programming, you've got design, you've got art. Within design, there are writers, there are level designers, there are systems designers, etc. But still, design is probably the biggest overall discipline that is the hardest. And everyone thinks they can do it because no one knows what design is. I guess it's kind of there. So there is a fallacy, a tendency in human behavior that has a really fancy name that if I was a debater I would know, and I could sound very fancy when I said it, where people assume they can do a thing if they...
No part of it?
Yeah, well, if they know nothing about it, they think they can do it.
Yes, they know just enough to make themselves... I forgot the name of it.
It's bugging me. Dunning-Kruger effect. Yes!
Yes!
I sound
Yes!
fancy now. Dunning-Kruger effect. Sorry, my memory's...
Where's your psychology degree?
Yeah. I actually have I almost had a psychology minor. If I'd stayed, I would have had a minor in psychology. I took a bunch of abnormal psych classes because I think they're really interesting. That actually informs a lot of my design. I took a lot of goofy writing classes and psychology classes because I find them interesting. So my mom is a technical editor and a fictional writer and a bunch of things, a novelist. My grandmother is a contract writer, so I've got like writing in my blood. I was writing stories before I learned the code, so that's always been a part of my programmer and designer DNA. Anyways, design has that Dunning-Kruger effect where everyone thinks they're a designer and everyone thinks that their designs are great because they have no idea what goes into design. Oh man, why am I coughing? It's ruining my coolness.
This is what happens when you try and talk about design. You see, it's the Dunning-Kruger effect in effect. You don't know about numbers.
Exactly, clearly. But no. So when you open a studio, you're kind of resigning yourself to getting an endless line of emails in which someone says they have this great design and they just need to find someone to do the work of putting it together. Or they'll say they have this great story, or they'll say they have this great X, and they want you to integrate it into the game, and they'll only want 10% of the money. It'll make tons of money. There we go. But that's what happens. Everyone assumes that design is this easy thing where I'm just going to go off in a corner and write in my notebook and I'm going to come out with this brilliant game design. No, that's not the way design works. For me, design is informed by functional skill. So you either need to be a programmer first, or a designer first, or some hard skill that you can measure. And you inform your design based on one of those hard skills. Writing is fine too, but you need to be able to do something. Design is this soft skill cloud. Design isn't a skill so much as a knowledge base. You've played a ton of games, you've watched a ton of film, you've read a ton of books. You have immersed yourself in media to the point where you've got that cloud of knowledge in the back of your head that makes all of those cool connections. For instance, the fact that I ended up with a noir game that mixes a bunch of genres, that has gender tropes in it that I'm playing with, all of that is informed by that cloud of information in the back where when I sit back in my chair and I go, what would be a cool idea? And something pops out. Whenever it pops out, I'm not convinced that humans are inherently creative. I don't think that we're all that good at coming up with an idea out of nothing. What we're really good at is taking up this big cloud of information and coming out with some unique variation from that. So what we think of as unique thought or unique ideas isn't really unique. It's a unique combination of a bunch of the person's experiences and media exposure and so on and so forth.
So, like they say, good artists borrow, great artists steal.
Exactly. Precisely. That's the thing. And that is what design is. That's all design is that giant cloud of information that you, whenever you sit back and you think, how can I solve this problem? If you're a good designer, an idea will pop up, or at least you'll be able to pull up a direction. If you're a bad designer, you'll sit back and you'll think about it, nothing will come to the forefront of your brain, and then you'll go, I guess Metroid did it this way, so I'll just do it that way. And I will fully admit, I've had a lot of moments where I did the, I can't think of a way of solving this problem. I'm just going to do it the way Metroid did it, or do it the way Zelda did it. I mean, that's why there's a currency system in my game. I was looking for a way of making the game fun without having kill 40 dudes to continue sequences, and that's a really hard problem to solve.
Ludonarrative dissonance,
Exactly, because it bugs me because it makes no sense. So a noir movie, you like Humphrey Bogart. But Humphrey Bogart doesn't open a noir movie by taking his machine gun and like gunning down an entire street of guys and then smoking a cigarette and going, You just
50 gil.
You don't do that. You kill like one dude at the end of the noir movie and he's a really bad guy or she's a really bad lady and everyone knew it was coming and they had it coming, and all the gun was done before that point, or all the gun did before that point was threaten some people, maybe hit some dudes over a head, but a bunch of non-permanent things. So you can't have that in a noir game. So I sit back and, what can I do that's fun that's not shooting people? I come up dead. So what I do is I start drawing on my inspirations. Well, okay, Zelda has a currency system that makes smashing things really fun, because you smash things, currency and it pops out. It's also a really convenient way for doing recharges, for doing ammo systems, etc. And it's fun because smashing stuff is fun. I mean, that's the whole point of physics in games. It's not so that you can build stuff, it's so you can knock down what someone else built, even if it's you that built it. Even Minecraft's that way. Half the fun of building that giant castle is standing back in the distance, setting your charges, and blowing it all to hell.
Okay, now you've made... I'm going to have to ask you about two things now, because what you mentioned was very interesting about noir and violence, and also, but when it comes to design, I like the way that you describe it as like a cloud of... Like, it's like... I guess you could say that design is like writing. It's not really one thing so much as it is a body of discipline.
Exactly. Writers do the same thing. It's, okay, I need to get character from point A to point B because this is the overplot and I think it's a really good idea. How can I do that without it being schlocky? What can I do that's creative? And you have to be able to sit back and come up with that idea, or you're going to end up with some schlocky prose about, I don't know, you're going to rip off, hopefully not Piers Anthony. Please don't rip off Piers Anthony, but that's probably what's going to pop out otherwise.
Rip off of Bradbury, he's good.
Bradbury's good. Stephen King, he's like the spottiest writer I've ever read. Some of his stuff is great, some of his stuff is just awful. But anyways, you were asking a question.
Oh yes. Say a field of discipline. Oh right. You mentioned how violence will play a part in your game. Like you're not going to be running in and machine gunning a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
But rather, you don't want a case of ludonarrative dissonance.
Exactly.
Now, do you think that focusing so heavily on genre is messing up games? Like, for example, the first argument about ludonarrative dissonance I found myself reading about was with regard to BioShock Infinite. Now, I hadn't played it. Oh, yes?
So, do your listeners know what ludonarrative dissonance is?
Oh, that is... I'm breaking the rules of journalism. I have to assume that people know nothing. Okay, so now for those who don't know, ludonarrative dissonance pretty much means that when the gameplay doesn't exactly match up with the story. Now, the issue that BioShock Infinite had was that you're running around just shooting up a bunch of guys, there's like a ridiculous body count, and then you're turning around and having tender feelings with the other protagonist, Elizabeth, and what everybody says is that, well, this doesn't really seem to match up properly. And what was said is that, well, this game is a first-person shooter, thus it has to have a lot of shooting in it, as opposed to, why not mix in other bits of gameplay that could have changed things up, But, yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
First of all, my personal favorite example is Uncharted, specifically Uncharted 2 and 3, where you have Nathan Drake, this plucky, wisecracking guy who's totally okay in the cutscenes, and between the cutscenes, he murders like 1,000 dudes. It's hilarious. And so the reason I have an issue with ludonarrative dissonance isn't because as a writer I have an issue. It's because it takes Nathan Drake's character from being a plucky, wisecracking treasure hunter into being a psychotic murderer. No one should be able to kill like 50,000 dudes and then make a joke about the food. That just shouldn't happen. Or he's...
Well, I think maybe we're not reading enough into the game. He just might be a psychopath.
Honestly, I think he is at this point. I mean, he's like the most lovable psychopath ever. But whenever I'm making a joke about smells and I just cracked a dude's neck and I cut his throat, what the Nathan? See someone. Uncharted 4 is going to be just sitting in a psychiatrist's bed talking. And it'll be like a dialogue puzzle. I don't know. But still. But yeah, I don't know if it ruins games, but it's one of the big things preventing games from being treated as a real art form by the rest of the art world. I absolutely believe that games are art, can be art, are already art. Stuff like Journey. Journey is one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had in a video game. Flower was the one I'd had before that. So that games company has totally proven that you can have this. Or even simple things like Passage by Jason.
Yeah.
It was Jason Rohrer, right?
Jason Rohrer. Yeah, he's the same guy who made...
Diamond Trust of Blood?
Diamond Trust. Yes, I played that one.
I've never played it. I've heard it's good, but still...
It is good.
But the point is, you could games are already art. You can make these experiences. But whenever the rest of the world sees us trying to say that games are art, and then they look at, the latest Tomb Raider, where... They tried really hard to mesh it, because by the end, she is yelling these horrible phrases, and she's really a kick-ass action hero. But that start in the middle of the game, where she kills someone and then cries, but then kills someone else, it's this disconnect. And that's... I don't want to say it's ruining game, because why can't games have action movie equivalents? I mean, look at The Expendables 2. I couldn't watch it because of how idiotic it was. I mean, you have... Sly killing 40,000 dudes and then cracking a joke with his accent like this. Oh, it was awful. But a lot of people loved it, and it was a great action movie. I have to give him props. It was an amazing action movie. Or
yeah, I think
Die Hard, the latest Die Hard. And there are action movies that I really liked. There's even action movies that play on action movie tropes, like Sucker Punch. I didn't get Sucker Punch when I watched it the first time. I thought it was just a fun action movie that was trying to say something, but I couldn't say what that something was. And I read a couple of analyses on it. One of them, the one that I read or watched, was actually extra credits. And now that's one of my favorite to point at action movies, is this hilarious inversion of the genre. But yeah, the point is, games can be action movies, and it's fine, and it's totally cool that games are action movies. But again, my screen is still looking at GamesAreGlory.us, and I'm looking at Drifter, Papers, Please, Gone Home, Actual Sunlight. Clearly, games can be something more, and these are all examples of games that don't have that ludonarrative dissonance. They're games that actually play with the fact that you're playing with a game, and you can create a dialogue with the player. I mean, that's part of why games are cool as a medium. They're not for making movies. I mean, action games are basically what happens when you take a summer blockbuster and turn it into a game. It's fun, but it's not using the medium to its fullest potential. Something like Papers, Please, something like Gone Home. These are things that start to push the medium and use the dialogue between the game and the player to make a statement. So, the reason games are usually called out as not something that's art is because player involvement destroys artist intent. The artist can't control the involvement that the player has with the game, so you end up with stuff like in what's the game about it's a shooter about two guys and they wear hockey masks.
Brothers. I know what you're talking about. Army of Two.
Army of Two, yeah. So Army of Two is an excellent example of when. So I assume they intended the game as this balls to the wall bro force action game. I spent the entire game making homoerotic advances towards my character by slapping his ass, because they had the slap ass button, and it was hilarious. You'd have an intense action scene and then you'd slap his ass, give him a high five. I loved that feature. Or 50 Cent Blood in the Sand is what happens when you make Army of Two, but the developers are aware of how hilarious the ass slap button is. and you've suddenly got all of your dudes saying, "Yo, Fitty, help me with this, yo, Fitty," and you've got an ass slap or high five or whatever button there. Actually, no. In that case, it was a curse button, so you could subvert any of the action movies or action scenes by, "Yo, you, man." It was hilarious, but still, that's why why others would say games can't be art, because the player subverts the experience and impacts whatever the artistic intent was. I mean, in those games, I seriously doubt there was an artistic monologue that was intended, but on the other hand, something like Journey. Journey doesn't give the player any verbs that subvert the experience. What the player does in the experience, playing with the mechanics, finding other people, helping them along, or hindering them. I actually really can't hinder, but I'm sure that there are some players that might try and do that. All of these are notes in an overall narrative of a journey, of together we can move a mountain. Or together we, what was the actual thing? Together, basically, togetherness, together you can do more than alone. And that's the overall story. Every single thing you can do in the game informs that narrative, which makes that game art. Not every game has to be that, but that's kind of what you can do with the medium if you really push and really cut your design down and really try hard. But at the same time, it's not ruining games if you don't do that. I mean, I am enjoying GTA 5 and I'm subverting the hell out of it, and I'm dressing up Trevor's car in this horrible pink color and giving him a La Cucaracha horn, and I think it's hilarious. And that's okay. It's an action movie game, and I love action.
And I'm pretty sure real gangsters would have the La Cucaracha horn. That's like obligatory.
Probably. I haven't brought myself to give Michael a La Cucaracha horn yet, because it just seems so wrong. But I probably will eventually, and by the end I'll all be driving pink cars that play La Cucaracha, and it'll be awesome. But still, so back to your original question. It's not ruining games, but games can be a heck of a lot more if you focus on the idea of ludonarrative dissonance, and how many games currently aren't even thinking about that. If you're at least trying. And Tomb Raider, again, is an example of a game that clearly tried to address this. It's an action game designed for action game players, well, action game and open world players, kind of whatever you'd call the AAA market at this point. I don't know what the demographics actually look like. But still, it was a game that was designed to address a lot of these shortcomings. It has a kick-ass female character. Towards the end, what you're doing actually matches with the character's emotions. It actually meshes really well, despite being a generic action game. Well, less generic than most, but still a relatively action-y game. It's just that first bit where they're trying to establish her character and create a character arc.
It's like they had that idea at first, and they just didn't stick with it, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know. The problem is you're trying to create a dramatic arc, which in an action game means you kick progressively more ass. So if you create a character arc starting at a woman that's crying when she kills a deer, that woman can never progressively kick more ass. She's not the kind of person that's going to do that. And
it would have made more sense for her to generally avoid conflict.
Exactly, a stealth game. That would have been a great start to maybe the Dishonored plot, where the intended way to go through Dishonored is to never kill anyone. It's a lot more fun if you do it that, by the way. Though at the same time, Dishonored gives you so many cool attack moves that if you go through and ghost the game, you are totally ruining it for yourself. You've got to actually play with them, and it's super cool. But back to Tomb Raider. Yeah, if they hadn't made her a weak character at the beginning, and they'd instead made her a kick-ass character that progressively kicks more ass, they would have gotten rid of the ludonarrative dissonance, but at the same time they would have kind of weakened the punch of the dramatic arc they were trying to show, the action movie dramatic arc. And clearly the latter, the dramatic arc, matters more than ludonarrative dissonance, especially when you're dealing with the standard AAA, I'm going to sit down and play an awesome game and have some fun audience. They don't give a crap about ludonarrative dissonance. They just want fun. So you've got to decide which audience you're targeting, and if you're targeting the just fun audience, kick it out the window. Think about it, try and address it, but fun has to come first every single time. So yeah, it's not ruining games. It's just it's creating a degree of a spectrum between games.
Now, I really like your insights into this. Now, a couple days ago, I managed to beat Dear Esther at long last. And I found that... What? Dear Esther?
Oh, sorry, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I found it to be a very interesting experience, even though I kind of have a hard time calling it a game, per se.
Yeah.
Because it was mostly just walking around and listening to really awesome poetry. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, So I've never played Dear Esther all the way through, so I'm a bad person to ask about that. But what I can do is offer an equivalent game called Proteus. Have you played Proteus?
I've heard of Proteus.
Okay.
Haven't played it though.
Proteus.
I think it's on Indie Game Stand right now.
Yes, it is. I would actually really recommend grabbing it if you haven't, just because it's a great experience. So Proteus has a similar problem of it's not really a game. It's kind of
An experience.
all you can do is walk. Literally, in Proteus, all you can do is walk. You can walk around a generated environment, and stuff happens. Basically, Proteus is a less linear Dear Esther,
Dear
I guess,
Esther?
if you want to think of it that way. Neither of them is necessarily a game, but it depends how you define game. If you define game as an experience with rules with an identifiable end state that's defined within the entirety of the game, so I have to get to a win state within the game, neither is really a game. They're both just interactive experiences. If, on the other hand, you define a game as a interactive experience with rules with an identifiable end state in the player, suddenly Proteus becomes a game. Because Proteus, though, I don't know if it was designed this way, I think it was. It's kind of designed to give you that experience of whenever you climb the fence on your backyard, whenever you're 9 or 8 or 7, and there's this massive forest, and you start exploring it, and you have no idea what you're going to find, and as a kid, it's cool, even if you've already been out there before, and maybe you live in the suburbs, so the massive forest is actually about 6 feet long, but it's that experience of walking into the unknown and just exploring. Free, happy exploring. In that case, Proteus is a game. Though Dear Esther still kind of fails that, since it's not really designed to create an end state in the player, it's designed to tell a story. So, yeah, I don't know if there's any definition in which Proteus is a game, but I'm also not sure that's a problem. I mean, if David Cage can make games like Heavy Rain or Beyond Two Souls and call them games, I'm perfectly okay with Dear Esther being called a game.
I think that's very well said, because, I mean, after playing it, I was like, wow, this was a really great experience, even though if I had to... in short, when reviewing it, I wouldn't give it any points on gameplay. I wouldn't score it on gameplay so much as story, presentation, experience.
And that kind of goes back to why reviews that are based on points are kind of... that they're not all that useful. It's not like a game has to have gameplay. It's just, as a player, you kind of want to know going in, is this a gameplay-driven game? Is this a narrative-driven game? Is this a story-driven game? Is this an exploration-driven game? And so your review would focus more on, this is basically a story told by the author, presented in a really pretty way, really immersive way, as you want to remember.
That we associate with games, but isn't exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because, I mean, like, before, I suppose they have an end state now, but, I mean, would Minecraft have been classified as a game before a certain update, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. Minecraft is, again, it's kind of like Proteus with more gameplay. A Minecraft isn't really a game, it's a sandbox, which people are okay calling games because it has gameplay, even though, I mean, what are the rules of Minecraft? Are there any rules? There are world-defined rules. There's these things interact this way, but that's kind of like the
laws of gravity.
Oh, the laws of gravity are the game of life. The game of life, I don't know if you can call it a game. It's interesting, and when you put data into it, it circulates in cool ways, but I don't think anyone's going to sit down and say, man, I love playing the game of life. It's just a neat toy. Minecraft is a neat toy, and it's totally okay that it's just a neat toy. I mean, 80 million people think it's totally okay that Minecraft is a neat toy, so clearly people are okay with calling that a game. But if you look at the rigorous definition of a game, all of these things are in that weird edge case where, is it a game, is it an experience, sandbox, do I care, is it fun? Like, a lot of people will say
Exactly.
a game has to be fun. Dear Esther isn't necessarily fun. Proteus isn't necessarily fun. I mean, The Last of Us probably isn't fun in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Well, I think that, in short, when you're creating something, it's partially about knowing your medium. You know, like Dear Esther didn't have to be fun. It was meant to be an interactive experience that told a really neat, deep story.
Yeah.
But it wasn't something that was meant to be, hey, entertain me.
Exactly.
Now, I've come to my next obligatory question, or final obligatory question. What's your favorite part of making games?
Ah, sure. More water. Yay, water. That's a toughie. I mean, obviously I came into the industry as a programmer, So I'm always going to have a soft spot for programming. And I specifically came into the industry as a graphics programmer. So I always really enjoy playing with shaders. But as an indie, that whole area almost never happens because I don't have time to spend 3 months working on a Sweatporg rendering system or whatever it is I would be doing in AAA. And to be honest, if I was to go back in AAA and spend 3 months working on a Sweatporg rendering system, part of me would be satisfied, but the greater part of me would be kind of annoyed because I just want to get on with the game and actually make a game. So I guess my favorite part of development isn't so much a specific discipline as a specific moment. It's that moment where a game stops being a collection of systems and starts becoming a game. It happens in every game you design. Sometimes if you're making a small game, it happens in the first week, whenever you've prototyped your mobile game and it's really fun and you can see that this is now a game and you can start making it. In a larger game, it probably happens as you're reaching the end of pre-production, where you had a lot of ideas before you even started pre-production, and you were hoping that they would work out. And towards the end of pre-production, hopefully, you're finding out that they do actually come together and they form a cohesive whole, and your testers are going to start responding positively and saying, man, this is fun. It's that moment where your QA testers, for instance, stop playing the game because they have to, start playing the game because they want to. Even if they're totally out of content, even if they've played it all a billion times, they start loading up just because it's fun. Or you start loading up because it's fun. That magical moment where it becomes a game is my favorite part of game development. Unfortunately, that comes about 3 to 6 to 9 months before the game actually releases, so the final putting together all the pieces is progressively less and less fun, and probably 3 months before release, you just want the thing to be over with and you're so sick of it and you're done. But that's the up and down of game development. I guess the second most favorite moment is when you're releasing the game and you actually start to see regular players getting it and enjoying it. And it's less favorite if they're not enjoying it, obviously. But yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have to say, I mean, I've only experimented with Twine, but there's something tremendously, what do you call it? Like there's just something tremendously gratifying about releasing something and getting feedback on it. Like after I released my game, it was kind of, I have to re-release it because it had some serious issues with my grammar. But I got so much feedback, and even feedback, hey, you need to fix this. There's just something exciting about that. You can't put your finger on.
When you make a game, to some degree, you bear your heart. You're putting yourself out there, and you're hoping someone approves of it. So even if the feedback is not necessarily positive, just helpful, it means that someone engaged with your game and you affected someone, and that's nice as an artist. You're getting immediate feedback. Whereas I'm assuming that if you're a painter, or so as a painter, I'm assuming that you don't get that unless you've got a nice gallery showing. As a writer, that comes from reviews that show your game or show your book off really well, or monetary success, which implies people are buying your book, which implies people are enjoying it, or whatever that moment where your creative process engages with your audience and there's some kind of positive dialogue created. That's the cool part.
Now, if there were one piece of advice that you could give to developers, what would it be?
Developers that are currently making games, or people that want to make games in general?
Both.
Okay, to developers, specifically indie developers, I would recommend that it's never too early to start talking about your game. That if you find yourself ever thinking, oh God, I don't think my game is ready enough, what if people dislike it? You need to shut that thought down, and you need to make yourself release it. Or at the very least, you need to come up with some honest-to-goodness, real reasons why people might not like it. For instance, everything is still programmer art, and it's not very fun. It's not very fun would be a probably good one. Programmer art might not be. You need to get it in front of people ASAP. I don't necessarily mean releasing it to the World Wide Web and, just opening the floodgates. But if you don't have testers playing it, if you don't have friends playing it, if you don't have strangers you've met on the internet that seem okay playing it, you're not going to get the kind of dialogue you need to make a good game. For non-developers that want to be developers, my only focal, immediate piece of advice that I always give is, why aren't you making games right this second? It's not like games are this magical thing that it takes years to work up to. Whenever I was first making games as a kid, I had to learn C++ and C, and it was really hard. These days, you go out, you download Unity. It's a Unity 3D. It's a free tool. You download it, you install it. You're making games in 20 minutes. You follow the tutorial, you follow some guides online. I mean, this is a tool that the least technical artist I have ever met, this really nice lady that I used to work with on LEGO Universe, I won't name names because I don't want to embarrass her, but seriously, she's an awesome artist, but she was never very good technically. She sat down with Unity 3D, and like a month later, she had an impressive prototype for an entire game built. And the way she did it was just, every time she had a problem, she would Google, how do I do this? And she'd find someone that had posted source code, and she would just copy-paste the source code. And it worked, because Unity's great for doing this. The component-driven design is really great for just chunking in bits of other people's work and it all coming together in a cohesive whole. It's not going to be the most stable or least buggy experience, but you can at least get your ideas onto paper, as it were. And then from there, you've got a starting point. You can start tweaking things and learning how things work. Again, if you're doing this from the C++ side, the way it ends up working is you start with an example program, or you start with an engine that someone's already built, and then you start tweaking aspects of the engine. But there's a lot of learning to get you up to that point. With something like Unity 3D, Unreal Engine is also a great example, a UDK, Unreal Development Kit. With something like that, you can skip almost all of that boring pre-work and get right to the fun part. You sit down, you start making games immediately, and then hopefully you find it interesting and you start learning the more rigorous approaches to things, and you become a better engineer or become a better programmer, or at least become a better scripter enough to make a halfway decent game. But you can start at the fun stuff and drill down, as opposed to starting at the boring stuff and drilling up slowly, I guess.
Kids, today we're going to learn about functions!
Exactly. I mean, when you learn C++ and you're making that horrible, I'm going to simulate a register system with 4 registers at a cashier's place, that's horrible. It's boring. No one likes to do that. I did, because I was a horrible geek. I still am a geek. But normal people don't like to do that. Whereas something like Unity 3D or at UDK, you can skip all of that. You can start making fun stuff instantly. You can make stuff that your parents at least will think is very cool. And they might even actually think it's cool. And then you drill down from there and making stuff that's cooler and better engineered, and you learn. But there's never a reason to not do this, is the point. You just do it and you get better at it.
I definitely think that's some good advice, is like, just get started, because we have such a freakish wealth of, resources available, you know?
I'm going to give one more piece of advice to people that want to go indie that are currently developers. More practical advice. Right now, the sweet spot is targeting mobile. What you should be doing is making free-to-play mobile games that have some kind of monetization in them that'll hopefully get you some money. It won't be, even ads work. It won't be much at first. You're looking at maybe like, a couple bucks a day. It's really popular, $5 a day. Until you break through that level of awareness, it'll be small. But the point is, you can do these in like 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And if you're working at a job that's not very fulfilling, it's probably not going to be too difficult to find the time in the evenings to do this if you're really dedicated. Start out with 1 game, not so much. 5 games, or 2 games, 3 games, 4 games, 5 games. You eventually build up to something where you could actually survive on this, or at least supplementing your income. It's a way of easing into indie development that doesn't have that scary, I'm going to start burning savings right now, go moment. You just ease into it. You get to a point where your development is actually paying more than your daily work, and then you can quit your daily work and make your development full-time. Or at least, instead of burning savings hardcore, you're burning savings at a 20% reduced rate or whatever, because you've got that at least small revenue stream going already. So that would be my recommendation for how to become indie in today's day and age. And you can do the same thing on PC to a lesser extent. There was a game that was recently released called Electronic Superjoy, which I...
Oh yes, by Michael Todd, right? Yeah, one of our writers introduced him.
He's a super awesome guy. You were actually exhibited right by him. Well, he wasn't there. I don't know who she is. I'm terrible with names. If you're listening, I'm sorry. You were awesome. I think she was either a developer or an artist or a sound person on it. The point is, she was there. She's awesome too. But their game is awesome, and their game is also small. And to the best of my knowledge, it's doing okay. I mean, I think it's on... Is it on Steam yet? I don't So yeah, if it's on Steam, it's probably doing pretty well. But the point is, you can also do the ease into development thing on PC side if you want. You've got that hurdle of getting onto Steam, which is of course difficult, but you don't even necessarily need to be on Steam. You can just establish a audience of direct sale people that'll keep supporting you to some degree. If you want an example of that, look at Spiderweb Software. They've been in business.
Now are those the Avedon people,
Avedon.
or am I thinking?
They've been in development for, God, I don't know, 20 years? It's something hilarious like that. They were indie before indie existed. And they just keep trucking on because they have this dedicated core audience that will buy their games. And until recently, they weren't on any big marketplaces. They weren't on Steam. They weren't on iOS. They weren't anywhere. They were just direct sales. So you can also build up to that if that's more what you want to do. But the point is, you can ease into it instead of just drop a line and go.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely know they had like a humble weekly sale a while back, and that really bumped up their sales a bit. So hopefully their audience.
Their iOS ports. I remember the post he made after his first. I think it was Abaddon. I don't remember, but he ported one of his games to mobile, and he made it. He tweeted something like, "I'm stumbling around in a state of delirious happiness at the sales figures." It was really hilarious to see. But the point is, they've got a lot more success now that they're broadening out. But they were able to succeed with this tiny core audience for ages before that happened.
Yeah. It's very interesting to consider. I guess, yeah, like we've said before, we'll keep saying again, know your audience, you know. So now, it's been very great talking with you. Now, for the sake of the folks at home, okay, so your game Hot Tin Roof is currently on Kickstarter, and you've got a couple days to go now. So, suppose they want more information on the game, they want to back you. Is there any way that they can get the game after the Kickstarter?
There is. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to hottinroofgame.com. If you go there before the Kickstarter's finished, there will be a Kickstarter link. You can click it, you can back it at whatever tier you want. We appreciate anything at all. Anything's appreciated. We love you. If you go there after the Kickstarter ends, there will not be a Kickstarter link, but there will be 2 Humble Store widgets that let you buy the basic or the deluxe package of Hot Tin Roof. We're also going to put up information for how you can get things that were only available during the Kickstarter, like we have a tier at $50, which lets you get access to the Backstage Pass, which is you basically get to see the mailings that we send to our team back and forth, and you get early access to prototypes because we just send them to the team, and it'd be way too hard to police that. If you want to get that kind of access after the Kickstarter ends, the way it'll work is you will buy the Humble widget for the Deluxe Edition, and there's a little plus there, and you can add $30, so you have to pay $50 instead of $30, and then you'll have Backstage Pass. You'll have to email me. The point is, if you want that tier, wait a bit. I'm going to update the page, but until that point, pick a tier, go for it, buy it, then you're in, and you'll have the game when it gets released. And the game releases, Hot Tin Roof releases, probably in March or April 2014. All of the Kickstarter tiers say August because we don't know precisely when. I mean, games development is variable, but figure sometime in March or April 2014. And it's going to kick ass.
Oh, very nice. Excellent. Well, I'm definitely... This one, I mean, it's such a unique game. Like, okay, so a film... Let me get this straight. A film noir platformer, Metroidvania platformer, mind you, mystery, co-starring in caps. Am I right? Yes. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite that daring before. Oh, film noir with a female protagonist, mind you. That's... Wow. Oh, and she wears a fedora. I mean, she has great taste in clothing. So.
Well, yeah, I think the reason I went this route was Jones on Fire was a critical success, but a financial fail. Well, not financial failure. It didn't do great financially. Didn't make our budget back. Because I didn't go risky enough. The whole thing started with me going, I really want to make a platformer on iOS, but I'm not sure there's a market for that, so I'll make a runner because runners are popular. That was such a big mistake. I mean, everyone reacted to everything else I did right. They liked the writing, they liked the character, they liked the cute little boxy characters and the animation. All of that resonated well, which I was a critical success. The music was a big hit. But the core gameplay was kind of boring, so understandably the core market was less interested. So I figured with this game, I didn't know how it's going to do on Kickstarter, thankfully it funded, but I figured if it was going to be a failure, I at least wanted to go out on a note that I respected. I would have a game, or at least a prototype of a game, that was really trying to push boundaries. So that's the direction I went, and thankfully the Kickstarter funded. Thank you all, by the way, if you're listening. I love everyone that backed us, and even those that just looked at us but didn't think we were ready yet. Check us out in a couple months. But I'm actually giving thumbs up to the mic, by the way, so imagine I'm giving you a thumbs up when I say this. But yeah, I still don't know how I was going to do it in market, obviously, but I feel like, pushing everything to the limit and just trying to make a goofy, weird game, I'll at least be more happy with the result, even if it's a total failure. But I don't think it will be, because we've got an audience that likes us. People seem to dig what we're doing, and again, I'm looking at GamesAreGlowy.us, and there's a ton of games here that are quirky, and all of them did well too, so, it's the indie time, so hopefully we'll do pretty well.
Excellent. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to this one. Oh, also for folks at home, let's say they'd like to follow you on Twitter. Who would
They would follow @glassbottom Meg. That's GLASSBOTTOMMEG. That's me, by the way.
Excellent. Yes, I suspected that, yeah. Well, very nice. Well, it's been great talking with you.
Yeah.
I really hope your game sees a lot of success. Now, for folks at home, this is Jordan Cameron for Black Man and Robin signing off. Please be sure to stick with us for all the latest game news, reviews, previews, and possibly other reviews.
It could have ended there before it began if I'd just let it. But what the hell? I needed the money. Who doesn't? So became my so-called life. Gritty streets and golden skies, red eyes, hard pillows, and hard luck stories enough to fill 13 shots on a sticky, rat-trodden bar. But it was home. Home sweet home. Always had been case or no case, to tell the truth. But the truth? Truth isn't eating at the same diner every night just to catch her eye for a few heart-stopping seconds and then ask for more coffee. Nobody's pie is that good, not even hers. Frankie stuck with me, though, little buddy. My cat-pawed chum of the feline persuasion. She even wore the hat. The hat. Our badge of office. A beacon to what few honest folks remained. Basically, me and her. Though truth be told, it never fit her all that well. Truth is, I don't regret anything. I'd never lived a day in my life until I picked up that phone. And besides, being gunned down, it only hurts for a second.